Hey guys, Spence here. You know, I did some thinking. I'm not a hero. I just shot that dude's face off. Has Mario ever done that outside of a GTA mod? No! Apparently elections are rolling around and Bunny Lord is a candidate. A guy in a bunny suit or an actual purple bunny? Anyway, he says that if he doesn't get in office on the 22nd, the world will end in a giant, ghastly catastrophe. To get positive PR, he decides to enact an anti-crime initiative. You, the player, are a member of Bunny's Death Squad, the Fun Club, and enact his various plans, from putting up billboards and posters, which both involve killing people, and blowing up drug labs and drug lords, which involve killing people. Did I mention Bunny Lord is a psychopath? Yep, a political hero. After you start the game, Bunny Lord gives you your primer on all this, and a tutorial level to familiarize you with the controls. When you start the game, you only have one character, but you can get more characters as you get a higher approval rating for Bunny Lord, which you do by doing bonus objectives, more on that later. After you select a character, you're dropped into a level. You can move left and right, shoot, reload, and slide. Slide has two functions. One, to slide in and out of cover to avoid gunfire. The second, allowing you to stun enemies and then execute them, the speed of which depending on if you have ammunition in your gun or not. Meanwhile, shooting also has a secondary function. While being long range, if an enemy happens to be close enough to you, you will critical them, instantly killing them. Now you cannot jump in this game, so you'll end up having to use stairs or gravity to go up and down. Though be careful when using gravity, because if you fall too far, you pay the toll. Good news is, it applies to enemies as well. The controls are solid and feel precise. Doing executions and intentional criticals feel very satisfying, though the only issue I really have is with the sliding into cover mechanic. Mainly because sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm sliding into cover in hectic gunfights, but that's mainly because it's kinda hard to tell when I'm actually in cover. Your character will have a slight shade on them implying they're behind something, but I think having your character crouching would be a much better visual indicator for if they're behind cover, especially in the hectic gunfights like I mentioned before, where that information would be really important to have really quickly. And that's not even talking about the different characters and their different properties. Steve, the first character, is relatively basic, only in being able to reload really quick. Meanwhile, your second one, Cletus, has a shotgun that can blow away doors, hitting enemies, and knock enemies back with his shots. But he is vulnerable when he's reloading. Now, what are you doing in Not a Hero? The levels will have you running and going through warehouses and apartments and other large buildings, all the while trying to do the objective that Bunny Lord has given you. In addition to this, you will have 3 extra optional objectives. To get credit for all of them, though, you have to do them all in the same run, which, as the game progresses, becomes increasingly difficult. Because of this, level designs tend to be more puzzle-like, especially in later levels in regards to optional objectives, where a lot of them are tied to specific paths that you can only go down once that you can very easily miss. Optional objectives also are not randomized and are specifically tailored for each level that they're in, making it that as you progress through the levels, the optional objectives will become more complicated and deliberate in how you have to solve them. And I should mention, there are power-ups, generally grenades and special bullets that can ricochet off walls, drill through enemies, and lasers, and those are randomized. There were a number of runs I had where basically it looked like I was gonna botch 1 or 2 of my objectives, but then it got salvaged by the fact that I found a random grenade launcher. In general, I really like how the levels are designed, like how you can use any character, and completing the optional objectives are always found satisfying and felt strangely compelled to complete them. There are some levels that I do not like, but even those don't go against the main design philosophy of the game, so I can appreciate them anyway. And besides, usually I don't like them because they're really difficult. Did I mention this game is really hard? And also has kind of a difficulty spike issue. After the first third of the levels, you will get introduced to brand new enemies. Enemies with shotguns that will knock you out of cover, enemies that cannot be stunned or knocked down by your slide, and adding all new mechanics at the same time, like hostages, that you have to sneak up behind the people who have them, otherwise they'll be killed. Which this does sound like complaining, but it actually isn't, as it definitely adds a lot more variety to the game, especially adding new mechanics as the game progresses. And there are points when they change things up, but they don't happen nearly enough. Like there's one point when after you complete your objective, enemies start spawning in and then you have to escape. It was fun, but the issue is they don't do this nearly enough. But with that being said, in general the gameplay is solid and it's fun, so, I mean, isn't that the point? In regards to this game's presentation, what you see in here is what you get. A clean pixel art style, a techno chiptune soundtrack that's good in my opinion, weird quirky dialogue from Bunny Lord, and a surprising amount of voice work, though not for Bunny Lord, who seems to talk in floor creaks. And I mean plenty between your characters taunting the enemies, the enemies taunting you, and then usually followed by them begging for mercy.
Please don't shoot me.
But in general, the presentation is really good, and if you like chiptunes, I'd recommend getting the soundtrack. And by that, I mean buy the Not a Hero Global Megalord Edition if you want the soundtrack. Because if you get the normal edition, you won't be able to upgrade to the Megalord Edition, and they don't have an external means of getting the soundtrack like a Bandcamp or anything like that. Making that you have to throw down another $20 on top of the $13 you already bought for the normal edition if you want the soundtrack legitimately. Which is the boat that I'm in. Stuff like this is why piracy is an issue. Devolver, Roll 7, whoever's in charge of this, fix it. And that's Not a Hero in a nutshell, really. Would I recommend this game? If you're into side-scrollers and either would like a really violent one or don't mind the violence. Or if you happen to be into the Hotline Miami series, which I guess you could call it a series, it says 2 games, though it's a side-scroller, so keep that in mind. The only issues I had with the game were the cover mechanics and hectic gunfights, how the game is admittedly repetitive, and the whole soundtrack mess. But the game is really solid, and I really liked it and would like it if they gave Bunnylord a second term. So yeah, if any of those looked interesting, I recommend it, and vote Bunnylord.